Hi everyone, this is Mary, you're on Mary Reads, and today I'm going to talk about the books I've read this summer. I'm a relatively slow reader, so I've only read 9 books, which is a great result for me still. 3 books a month is pretty good with my speed of reading. It's already September, it's time to fully wrap up your summer achievements, and that's what I'm going to do in this video. So my June started with the book by Donna Tartt, Secret History. I was looking forward to this book for so long. I finally got it for Valentine's Day in the beginning of the year, and obviously it's much better for the fall atmosphere, but I just couldn't wait, so I read it in June. The book starts with us seeing the group of students standing near the body of their friend who they just killed. And then we transition to the beginning of the school year and start finding out how this whole situation happened. First, we meet Richard Pipin, the main character who tells us the story. He gets into the new university and decides to study Greek, as that's something that he already studied before. But there's only one professor that teaches Greek, and he has a very exclusive group of students, of 5 students. And Richard doesn't get in at first, but he gets his spot when he helps the other students with their Greek homework that they couldn't figure out. And the professor invites him into the group, even though he's the 6th student. They study classics, they study Greek mythology, Greek authors, so it's a very aristocratic group. All of the kids in this group are very rich. They have a certain level of life, and Richard is the only one who is not as well off as they are. So that's the first thing that separates him from the rest of the group, plus them obviously not trusting him yet because he's a new guy. But slowly, as he's gaining trust, we see more and more of the life of the rest of 5 students, and we find out why the murder happened, how it happened, and what happened afterwards. If you're looking for an action novel, this is probably not going to be the best choice, just because we see a lot of thinking, reminiscing. It's a very psychological novel where actions are not the most important things. It's thinking about your actions what makes this novel so great. After the murder happens, young adults are trying to get their lives back together, are trying to not go crazy. They have psychological breakdowns. They're trying to pull their lives back together, covering the murder, making sure nobody finds out about it, and at the same time dealing with a lot of psychological trauma after it. This was the first novel by Donna Tartt. It was published in 1992, and obviously it has its downsides as it's her first work, but it's an amazing novel. One of the downsides I will name is that a lot of times when it comes to more secondary characters like our professor, we don't see him as a 3D character. He's like a 2D paper character, just because the author doesn't show us why he's a certain way. She just tells us that he's a certain way, and we have to believe her just based on the sentence that she gave us. A lot of times this pushes you out of the story, but as he's the secondary character, it's not as important. So the book is still amazing, and it's definitely worth reading. The second book of this year for me was The People in the Trees by Hani Yanagihara. It is her first novel. The Little Life came second, but I read Little Life first, and maybe because it was such a heartbreaking story for me, I loved that one the most. The People in the Trees, though, is an amazing story still. The book starts with an article which talks about the professor who was just being prosecuted for having sex with kids. Obviously, the professor denies it because he made a huge scientific discovery. He got a Nobel Prize for it. He's an extremely important member of the scientific society, and his assistant decides to write a memoir of this scientist to prove all the people wrong. We get back to the childhood of our main character. We see how he grows up with his twin brother. We see his mom dying young and how it caused their characters to change. We later see how the brothers separate. One goes into literature, another goes into science. And finally, we get to the main story. Our main character goes to an expedition to the island, trying to help a professor discover a new tribe of people. If the professor is interested in the culture of the tribe, their traditions, their everyday lives, our scientist is more interested by how they stay young for so long. A lot of them are talking about their age being more than 100 years old, some of them more than 200 years old, and he doesn't understand how it's possible. So later he finds out that there is a turtle that every member of the tribe eats after they turn 60, and that's what helps them stay young. Their body stays young, they see very well, they hear very well, their body moves fast, all of their organs work well, but their brain keeps aging. So at some point, their brain almost dies and they become like animals, just looking for food, sleeping on the grass, on the ground, not able to talk, not able to understand what others are telling them, not able to think properly. And obviously, as the scientist makes a discovery, he writes about it, and the whole scientific society, as well as pharmaceutical medical companies, come to the island to test this turtle and see what results they can get, maybe like a new medicine, a new cream that will help you prevent from aging. And this leads to the island being destroyed, the tribe being destroyed, and most importantly, the turtles going extinct. As the scientist feels horrible guilt from his actions, he decides to take kids from those tribes and bring them back to America, where he will give them a good life, help them study, help them get a job, and help them live in a growing country rather than an island that is unfortunately dying. We feel passionate for the professor, we feel empathetic, we like him a lot, his actions look very good, but the last couple chapters reveal a lot of dirty things about him. We find out the details of his life that we probably would prefer not to know, and this changes your whole opinion of the book just in 1 second. And that was mind-blowing for me. I did not expect that, and that's why I thought that the book is so great. It will probably be one of the best this year, and I will definitely be rereading it later. The next 6 books were Alan Bradley's Flavia de Luce detective novels. There are 10, but I've only read 6 because I was not interested enough to read the whole series. It was a great summer reading. I enjoyed all the cases that Flavia de Luce was solving. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the world the story is in. But it still was a children's detective story, and that's why I decided not to finish. What I loved about this novel is that even though it's a kid's detective story, it gives us pretty serious cases. Flavia de Luce deals with a lot of murders, pretty violent murders, and some of them were actually scary and disturbing even for an adult. That is a great thing that in a lot of children's detectives you don't see, because for kids they usually do something gets stolen or some like a ghost story that kids need to uncover. Here we deal with very serious adult cases. The very interesting story that goes as a red thread through the whole series of books, well, at least through the first 6, is Flavia de Luce's mom. She died in the mountains, and everybody believes that it's an accident, but nobody found her body, and her father is still grieving. There is this little hope in us that she is still alive. And in book 6, we find out finally what happened to her. And this was a great huge reveal of the whole series. I really enjoyed that book. That was probably one of my favorites out of the whole 6 that I've read. I would recommend this book if you're looking for something fun to read, something easy to read, but at the same time, something that will give you thrills and excitement. Finally, the last book of this summer is Queen Margot by Alexandre Dumas. He's a very popular writer. You probably know him at least by Three Musketeers. And Queen Margot is the first book of the trilogy about religious wars in France. The first book starts with the marriage of Margot to King of Navarre, who is a Huguenot. She is Catholic. And by this marriage, King of France wanted to show that he's equally tolerant to both Catholics and Huguenots. Obviously, people did not like that. Catholic people did not like that. And that's when St. Bartholomew's Day massacre starts, killing a lot of people. So these 2 scenes are the first, and they're building up to what the book is going to be about. Later, we see Queen Catherine de' Medici trying to get rid of King of Navarre just because she sees him as her main enemy, who is trying to get the throne of France to himself. We see a lot of plot twists, a lot of love stories, a lot of gossips. It is a great historical novel that made me very interested in history of France. One thing you should know is that even though Dumas uses real historical characters and real historical events, some of the scenes that he decides to use are based on legends, are based on the tales that were told, and we are not sure if that's true. For example, the fact that Queen Catherine killed one of her sons by poisoning merely as an accident is obviously a tale, a legend, and we're not sure that that actually happened, but it works great for the plot. It makes the story more interesting and alive, so that's why he uses it. Everything mostly is pretty accurate. All of the characters that I was Googling afterwards, trying to see if they are real, were actually real. So I think that if you read this book and then you read at least a short article about that period in the history of France, you will get a pretty good picture of what was happening back then. So this is definitely something that you should try reading if you're interested in history, but you don't want to dive into it and learn a lot of dry facts and dates. This is a great playful way to learn, and you can always just put a little more information on top of this base made by a novel. I also am reading the 2nd and the 3rd books. I'm now in the 3rd. I will definitely make another video on the whole trilogy, but it will come a little later, obviously, when I finish with the 3rd book. And this is all for today. Thank you guys for being here with me. I hope you enjoyed the video. Share in comments which books you read this summer and if you've read any of the books I mentioned, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.